Get up, pig.
She's not a cop. Look at him!
Andy is a 30-year-old woman who works as a 911 dispatcher for the police department. She leads an uneventful life, lacking ambition, and still lives with her mother, Laura, who is a speech therapist for veterans. Andy's routine existence takes a sudden turn when Laura invites her to lunch to celebrate Andy's 30th birthday. When Andy shows up at the restaurant in her uniform, Laura urges her to pursue higher education, telling her that she needs a plan for her future. Laura encourages her not to wait another year, as Andy has already missed the fall college application deadline. However, Andy refuses to consider leaving her current life behind, arguing that she is fine as things are. As their conversation grows tense, Laura's friend interrupts to brag about her daughter's success in pre-med, making Andy uncomfortable. Excusing herself, Andy goes to the bathroom, but on her way back, a man in the restaurant suddenly pulls out a gun and opens fire on Laura's friend. Chaos erupts, with people scrambling to hide, while Laura rushes to shield Andy from the gunfire. Spotting Andy's police uniform, the shooter mistakenly believes she is an officer and orders her to get up, yelling, "Get up, pig." As Laura begs him to spare Andy, she clarifies that Andy only works as a dispatcher. This enrages the shooter, who then aims the gun at Laura. In the struggle that follows, Laura manages to knock the gun away, but the man swiftly draws a knife and attempts to stab her. In a quick and instinctive move, Laura uses her hands to block the blade, taking a deep wound in the process. Without hesitation, she grabs the knife and slashes his throat, killing him instantly. Later, in the hospital as Laura waits for hand surgery, she watches the news, which shows her face prominently on the front page. A nurse comments on her sudden rise to fame, but Laura seems disturbed by the attention. Meanwhile, Andy waits in the hospital lobby with her stepfather, Gordon, when Detective Wilson approaches to ask questions. The detective shows them a video of Laura killing the shooter and tries to probe further into the events. However, Andy refuses to cooperate, and Laura, now out of surgery, dismisses the detective. As they leave the hospital, Laura drops a bombshell on Andy, telling her that she needs to move out of the house. Andy is taken aback by the sudden request and tries to reason with her mother, but Laura insists that Andy is an adult and must start acting like one. That night, as the news reports on the case, a mysterious man calls someone to warn about an ongoing problem. Meanwhile, Andy is left reeling from the day's events and tries to find some sense of stability. Laura, on the other hand, finds comfort in Gordon's presence. Later, a stormy night leaves Andy unsettled. While preparing to leave, she notices a strange man lurking around the house. She hides, hearing him break into the house shortly after. Worried for her mother's safety, Andy sneaks inside and finds her mother tied up, with the stranger trying to strangle her. Acting quickly, Andy texts the police, grabs a lamp, and hits the man from behind. He recovers quickly and attempts to overpower her, but Andy manages to shove him into a hammer, killing him in the process. As Andy informs her mother that the police are on their way, Laura reacts with shock, insisting that they search the man's pockets instead. They find his phone, and Laura gives Andy a new phone, a key, and cash, instructing her to drive to a storage unit in Carrollton where she'll find a car key. She tells Andy to drive to Maine and wait for her call, but Andy is confused by the cryptic instructions and agrees to follow them. In Carrollton, Andy searches for the storage unit, stopping at a cafe to look up its location. As she does, she recalls hearing the man mention someone named Paul on while threatening her mother, so she looks up the name, but finds nothing of importance. Meanwhile, Detective Wilson interviews Laura about the strange call she made that night, with Laura attributing it to her PTSD. The detective leaves after questioning her about the shooting incident. Laura calls Gordon, urging him to return home immediately. At the cafe, Andy notices a man eyeing her car, so she quickly leaves and stumbles upon the storage unit. Inside, she finds a car with a loaded gun, provisions, a suitcase full of money, and several identification cards. There is also a photo of her mother when she was younger. Confused, Andy decides to continue her journey to Maine. Back at home, Gordon arrives and asks Laura about Andy's whereabouts. Laura explains that Andy is on her way to Maine. She also mentions the man tied up in the wardrobe, revealing that he didn't die from the hit. Gordon is confused and tries to call the police, but Laura stops him, revealing that the man was supposed to meet someone at 3 p.m. to exchange payment. They must find out who is behind everything. Gordon refuses to join her, but Laura convinces him that Andy's life is in danger, and he reluctantly agrees to help. As they drive, the man starts to seize. Before he dies, he warns Laura that the boss is going to kill her.
Hey, listen to me.
Realizing that time is running out, Gordon presses Laura for answers, and she admits that a mysterious figure has been after her life for years. Meanwhile, Andy checks into a motel and feels restless. She visits a bar across the street and meets Jack, a former soldier. They talk, and Andy begs him for shooting lessons, which they practice throughout the night. Later, as Jack drives her back to her motel, she notices something in his car that reminds her of something she saw near her house. Panicked, she rushes back to her room and immediately begins making plans to leave. The next day, she buys a new car with the money from the suitcase. As Laura appears on TV discussing the need for an army for change, a mysterious man grows tense. Andy also contacts Charlie, her mother's friend, to talk about the situation. Back at home, Laura finds a man standing outside her house offering to help her escape the country to avoid the mysterious boss. She turns him down and threatens to go to the police if he approaches her again. He warns her that the organization will go after her daughter, though, which concerns Laura. Meanwhile, Andy abandons her trip to Maine and visits Charlie, where she shows him the portrait of her mother she found in the suitcase. When she asks Charlie about Paula, he denies knowing anything. Suspecting something is off, Andy checks his drawer and finds a photo of his wife and children, which contradicts his earlier claim of being single. She becomes more suspicious of him and leaves, calling Gordon to investigate Charlie's true identity. Gordon is reluctant to share details, which only frustrates Andy further. Andy visits a children's park and borrows a MacBook to search for Paula Company. After refining her search, she learns that Paula is a fugitive and a former member of a terrorist organization from the 1980s. While jotting down notes about Paula's lawyer, she receives a call from Laura, who urges her to come home, promising to explain everything. Andy agrees, but as Laura drives to pick her up, she is suddenly ambushed by 2 cars. Meanwhile, Andy makes a stop at a law firm to inquire about Geraldine Ross, Paula's attorney. When the receptionist denies her request, Andy sneaks into the restroom, steals an employee's ID badge, and uses it to access the building. Unbeknownst to her, Jack has been following her closely and breaks into her car, searching for a suitcase full of money. After spotting Andy exiting the law firm, he abandons the suitcase and decides to continue shadowing her instead. Andy then heads to a hostel and disguises herself as an employee from the law firm using camouflage makeup. Her flawless impersonation allows her to bypass prison security and meet Paula in person. However, Paula quickly sees through the act and demands to know who she really is. Andy tries to question her about Laura's past and shows Paula a picture of her, asking if she recognizes the woman. When Paula sees the photo, she becomes enraged and aggressive. As guards drag her out, she shouts that Laura's real name is Jane Queller and that Jane is supposed to be dead. Shocked by this revelation, Andy searches for the Queller family name and finds information about Jasper Queller, a well-known author and head of a major pharmaceutical company. Reading through his books, she discovers that Jane is actually his sister. Stunned, she steps outside to process this new truth but quickly realizes that Jack has been tailing her. Trying to evade him, she leads him into an alley and pulls a gun on him, demanding to know why he's following her. He identifies himself as a U.S. Marshal named Michael and shows his badge, explaining that both Andy and her mother are part of the Witness Protection Program. Michael warns Andy that her life is in serious danger, but she brushes off his caution and instead asks for his help sneaking into a private fundraiser hosted by Jasper Queller in El Paso. Reluctantly, he agrees. At the same time, Charlie confronts Laura, instructing her to relocate and start a new life where no one can find her. Fed up with constant hiding, Laura refuses and blames the authorities for failing to catch Nick, the mastermind behind her troubles. Charlie presents her with several photos of suspects and asks for her help identifying them, but she denies recognizing anyone. Instead, she insists on leaving witness protection altogether and reclaiming her original identity as Jane. That night, Andy and Michael rest at a motel to prepare for the fundraiser. However, later that night, Michael steps out to update someone on Andy's situation, asking what to do with her. While he's away, a mysterious man sneaks into the room and tries to strangle Andy. Michael rushes back just in time to fend off the attacker, but Andy takes advantage of the chaos to escape. Out on the street, a black car begins to follow her. She tries to flee and climb over a fence, but Michael stops her. Overwhelmed with relief, she impulsively kisses him and breaks down crying in his arms. The following day, Andy attends the Queller fundraiser, pretending to be an admirer of Jasper's books. As he signs her copy, she reveals that she is his niece, shocking him. Jasper discreetly instructs his assistant to escort her to a private room. Security prevents Michael from joining her, forcing him to wait outside. Inside, Jasper and Andy share a seemingly warm moment, but when Michael spots a suspicious man, he follows him only to lose him in the crowd. When he returns, the private room is empty, with only Andy's phone left behind. Andy, meanwhile, has left with Jasper, believing she can trust him. At the same time, Laura officially signs documents to exit witness protection, and Charlie hands her an old ID card under her real name, Jane Queller. Andy starts living at Jasper's mansion, while Michael reports her disappearance to federal agents. They inform him that Andy and her mother are no longer under protection, meaning he is no longer assigned to her case. Just as he prepares to move on, Laura calls him, and he reveals that Andy is staying with her uncle Jasper. Alarmed, Laura hangs up and sets out to find her daughter. Realizing Andy could be in danger, Michael decides to help her. At Jasper's estate, Andy questions him about her mother's past. Jasper tells her that Laura was once close to a man named Nick Harper, who co-founded a terrorist group with Paula. He reveals that Nick betrayed Laura by orchestrating the murders of her father and brother. In a flashback, the Queller family is shown having dinner with Nick, who was a family friend and romantically involved with Jane. Nick later introduces Jane to Paula, and together they form a radical group called the Army of the Changing World, responsible for bombings and attacks. When Laura's father uncovers that Nick Harper is an alias stolen from a dead man, he exposes him, leading to a bitter breakup between Nick and Laura. Back in the present, Andy finds old videotapes of her mother playing piano. A housekeeper gives her another tape, revealing Laura and Nick's romantic relationship. Disturbed by what she sees, Andy calls Michael to discuss it, and they agree to meet the next day. When she confronts Jasper about Nick's real identity, he denies everything. Andy then tries to meet the housekeeper again but discovers that Jasper's security team has been spying on her and tracking her conversations. Realizing this, she flees the house without noticing the tracker they planted on her. The next day, Andy meets Michael in public and tells him she believes Nick Harper might be her father. Michael warns her that Jasper has his own agenda and isn't as innocent as he appears. During their conversation, a woman bumps into Michael, apologizes, and walks away.
Mike? What is it, Mike?
Moments later, he collapses, unconscious, apparently poisoned. When paramedics arrive, Andy slips away unnoticed.